TV. Well, welcome to Gale Force Wins on Rogers TV. It is an absolute pleasure to be bringing you stories of inspiration from people that are doing really cool things. I'm Alan Dale. With me, as always, my good buddy from the East End of St. John's, Jerry Carew.
We're excited to have you come along on this journey. If you haven't experienced Gale Force Wins, WINS, before, then you're in for a treat. The people that we have on this show are inspirational.
And welcome to another edition of Gale Force Wins. I'm Alan Dale. With me, as always, my good buddy from the East End of St. John's, where we are right now, Jerry Carew. How are you, Jerry?
I'm absolutely fantastic, Alan. Obviously, we are in an incredibly beautiful place, and I'm extremely excited. I'm always inspired by entrepreneurs, and we are sitting with a gentleman that has created one amazing business, so I can't wait to learn where he came from and how he did it.
Well, absolutely, Jerry. Here we are. We're in the atrium of Lane's Retirement Village, in the East End of St. John's, up at Airport Heights. 3-story waterfall, baby grand piano behind me. Couldn't be a more beautiful place. But more beautiful than the scenery are the staff and the residents here. It really feels good when you walk in this door, and I can't wait to get into this conversation as well. So Barry, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Barry Lane, and I grew up in a place called Windsor, Grand Falls, and back in 1978, I was working in Halifax. And I should tell you a little bit about my family. There's 7 of us siblings, my mom and my dad, Vernon and Alvina Lane. And we did move to the East Coast back in '69, I believe it was. And my father worked on the East Coast, and we began to build our lives here. At the age of 16, I left home, went to Halifax, got myself a job. And when I was 18, the company I worked with came to me one day and said, would you like to have a week's vacation to go to Newfoundland? I said, sure. What do you want? They said, we have a 9200 computer that needs to be put in the Confederation building, and nobody down there knows how to do this, so we want you to go down and do it for us. I came home, and I'm telling you this for a reason. I came home and I put the computer in, and I went to visit one of my friends, and he said, there's a young lady that works in the seniors home, and I think you should meet her. I said, no, I don't think so. I said, I'm only home for a week and I'm gone again. And he said, well, so I did. I picked up the phone and I called her, and a blind date, never seen her before, and so I asked her, would she like to go out for lunch? And she said, sure. And the two of us went out for lunch. 7 months later, I was married. And like I said, she worked in the seniors home. She loved working with seniors. And I told her, one day I'm going to build you a seniors home, and you're going to have a home of your own. It took some time. I think see now, see if I can get my dates right. It was 98, I'm sorry. 1998, we decided to change careers. I was a clergy for a number of years, and I decided to look for a seniors home. I looked in the papers, and finally I found 2, and one I was interested in, which was Old Perdigan. And we decided that we would purchase Old Perdigan Seniors Home, and we called it Luxury Village. Once we purchased it, we had 13 residents, and it was tough going for 6 months, and we were new on the block, and we kept, renovating and working hard and working with the people of the community, and they were really good to us. And I have to say that my wife was really dedicated. I called her the hero of the business. You know, she was amazing. She treated the residents like they were her home. And we never did any advertising in all the years of operation. We didn't have to. Our motto was that our seniors would advertise for us. You look after them and you care for them proper. Our motto was quality, care, and comfort. And we strove to give the best that we had to give. And I have to say we were there for a number of years, and it came time to leave. But when we did leave, we built on 2 extensions. We had 39 residents in the building at the time we left, and we could only take 40. You know, so we were down 1 resident. So she was really the one that looks after the residents, and I looked after the building, and we moved up. We built another one in Victoria, and then we built in Carbonaire. Then we built in Winterton, or we bought in Winterton, I should say. We also went to Waitaway. We went to Gander Bay, South Arm. We built a new one in Botwood. We built a new one in Fort Saunders. And we just loved the business. And I always say that seniors are the most loyal people that's left. They're going to respect you and treat you well. And my wife, lots of times she'd bring home, you know, like such and such a person passed today, and she just used to take it to heart like it was her own, you know, her family that had passed. And I remember folks in some communities, one community in particular, where somebody brought a garbage bag in with the clothes for the individual, dropped the garbage bag, never to come back again to visit their loved one. And my wife would take to them. She would really make sure they had clothing, and you know, even she had a conversation with the undertaker. You know, I need coverage for these precious people that had no funeral arrangement. And before you know it, their funeral would be paid for. And, you know, she would make sure every month so much was paid on the funeral. And, you know, nobody wants to leave their own home. You know, they love their own home. And back those days when we started, the home was like an institution. And you really didn't want to go there, like, you know, unless you really had to, so to speak. But all that changed over the years. I remember one time we had this lady come in, and she had 7 daughters. And she said, she was really upset. She said, I'm here with 7 daughters, and no one would look after me. And we took her, and she was a bit difficult on the first of it, we got to say. But I remember one evening, all the girls came in and they stood around the bed and they said, Mom, how are you doing? Don't go talking, girl. I should have been here 20 years ago. You know, but a few weeks prior to that, she don't belong here, so to speak. But, you know, we've seen story after story. My wife, we had people with alcohol problems, and you know, she had a way of dealing with them. You know, one guy would come and say, how about a drink? You know, and didn't like to get a bath, didn't like to get a shower, you know. And she would say, you go up and get your wash, be cleaned up, and we'll give you a drink. And but you know, we had some homes that drink flowed freely, and of course it wasn't allowed in the public like that, you know. And we didn't mind administering the drink, and you know, and they could handle it, and so on and so forth. But yeah, care was a big thing, and my wife was the one that really shined through all that. All I done was the hammer and nail, and you know, organizing to purchase a place. But she looked after staffing. She looked after all the government forms and all the residents themselves, and, which was a big part of this, you know. And we were going on, just building and growing, and then we were approved for 2 more facilities, one in St. Anthony and one in Pasadena when she got diagnosed with cancer. And of course that brought a whole different perspective on everything, you know. So our boys were in college. The 2 older boys were away. One was in Springfield, Missouri. The other one was in Manitoba, I believe. And I started selling off some of the facilities and knew we couldn't go on like this, you know. And I had some quality of life that for my wife. And so we contacted them and said, look, you know, if you want to come home and try this, we'd love for you to. But if you don't like it, you can pursue your careers again and move on. And so they came home and they fell in love with it as well. And I mean, we've got to fall in love with it because you're dealing with the best people in the world, you know, the seniors, you know, and they are very, very loyal, and for the most part, you know, really good to get along with and appreciate what you do for them, you know, and that makes a big difference when you're doing this. So they take it and brought it to a whole new level, as you can see here, and
Amazing.
which is great, you know, what they're doing. And we wish them well. We hope that it keeps going. I'm just on the sidelines looking on now. And I lost my wife 3 years ago, and that was very difficult. And my boys called me and said, Dad, would you like to come back to work? And I said, no, I think you're better off paying me to stay out of it. You guys are doing things a lot different than I'm doing now. And I have my day, and but I do, you know, I'm always accessible. They want me for different things. They're always calling me and saying. And my wife, before she passed, because I used to tell them, no, don't call Mom anymore. Don't say anything to Mom, because you know she got enough on her plate. But she used to say to me, you go help the boys. They need you, you know, and they're doing the good work. And so as you can see, they put Sheila's diner here, and they remember her. They know the roots, you know, where they came from. And I got to say, my sons, they all started right from the grassroots down, you know, cleaning the floors and in the kitchen and a bit of everything. You know, they learned it the hard way, and I think they've done well. You know. Yeah.
You promised your wife 1. You said, I promise you 1.
Yeah, that's
How
right.
many did you wind up with?
I wound up with 9 and 2 more to close the bill, but I didn't do it, you know. Yeah, and we were quite busy, flat out all the time, and but the journey was so worth it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so worth it.
You said that the home has changed over the years. Did you have a hand in changing the way it is
Well,
here in Newfoundland?
I had to say my wife did, yes, because I remember 1998 when we started, the government wanted to legislate sprinkler systems for, you know, for fire safety and so on and so forth. And we were one of the ones that really stood out and said, look, you know, this is important. We took a lot of heat, a lot of criticism for that. But we felt it was a big tear up for a lot, especially the existing homes. But it was well worth the safety. You know, nobody wants a home to burn and lose residents to fire. It would be an awful thing. So we took a nice bit of criticism for that, and we did try to take away the institutional look and to try and make it more like a residence. My wife used to always say, if it's not as good as my home, it's not good enough. And she said, I got my home comfortable and the way I want it. And these residents deserve the same thing. And we strove to You know, it might seem a bit humorous when I say that she arranged their funerals. Lots of times my boys were smaller and there was a funeral going on. And you got to understand, a lot of these people had no families. They had nobody to care for them. And they were with us. And my sons would look in the funeral home in the casket and say, "Dad, is that your jacket?" You know, have they got a jacket like yours? And we took the clothes off our back and we gave it to our seniors. They were family. They were our family, you know. And my wife always strove to give them the best quality of life and the best send-off, you know, whatever was the case. She was there to care for them right to the end, you know. And I can't say it was all without challenges. There was lots of challenges, you know. I remember the first home that we started. We had the money to buy the place, or the financing to buy it, but we had no money for groceries the first month operation. And I said to my wife, "What are we going to do? You know, we're into this business now, and we got no money for groceries." I remember I went to the post office and I got this credit card application in the mail. It said, "Signed there, you have $5,000. That's when I went and bought groceries at her, you know. And we started there, and we just kept snowballing and building our business, and we got a lot to be thankful for, you know. But it wasn't without challenges, but we did get through them.
It sounds pretty amazing.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to stay on topic of your wife. What was your wife's name?
Sheila.
Sheila sounds like quite an amazing person.
Yeah, she was an amazing person.
Yeah. Her compassion and your compassion for the residents of the homes that you built over time is remarkable. And it permeates to this day down to the staff here.
Yeah. There's no other way around it, only to say that she was just an amazing lady with a vision for seniors. And no matter when she spoke to them or with them or for them, she was on their side and done an amazing. And I keep telling my boys that without her, this wouldn't be what it is, you know. She's the one that passed the compassion along to her sons and myself, and like I said, they're continuing her legacy, and they know that it's all because of their mom, you know. Yeah, their dad is just a byproduct.
You were just swinging a hammer.
Yeah, that's it.
I think you'll probably do more than that.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to do it all. Sometimes we'd be in the kitchen, sometimes we'd be on the floors. We just did it all together, like, you know, the two of us. Especially Saturdays, I would make a pot of soup for the seniors, and they loved to see me in the kitchen and doing something like that, knowing that that's not my profession, but it was, you know, it was good to be involved with them.
Barry, sorry, Alan, a lot of men, you know, will say to their wives, "I promised to mow the lawn, I promised to do the dishes." Not a lot of men promise to buy a home like you did.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this. Prior to 1998, what business background did you have to give you, I guess, the guts to pull the trigger?
Yeah. Well, I was manager of the dairy industry for Central and Western Newfoundland. And first I had my own distributorship. I had 3 trucks on the road, and I used to buy from the dairies and resell myself. And then they asked me would I take over the business in Central and Western. So I did. I remember they had, I think it was 5 trucks. And the time I finished with them, we had 38 trucks on the road. And I felt like I wanted to win the ministry. So I went in the ministry for several years, and and before that I used to have a hardware store in Twinnegate called Champion Charlie's, And so I meddled with a few things, and I always loved business. And so I said to my wife one day, I got up and I said, I think we're going to do something different in life. And she said, what? I said, remember I told you I was going to get you a senior's home? Yes, she said. I think the time has come. And so that's where it just started from there, and we just grew it, like, you know. But it grew fast. It went really fast, and we had a job really to keep up with staffing and everything, you know. And but like I said, that was her good fortune that she'd look after all the staff.
Alan, I just want to follow up. Like, it grew fast. Was there ever a time you felt overwhelmed? Like, I'm overwhelmed just listening to your story, frankly.
Yeah, well, I did get overwhelmed when, I think the overwhelming came when she was diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
That really set us back, and you know, it was hard that, because, you know, we've seen a lot of people go through stuff, dealing with seniors and at the close of their life and so on and so forth. But when it comes on your own plate, and we weren't old by any means, you know. But it was time to rethink things, and that's when the boys came in, and we just, you know, sort of backed away. I missed it dearly. She didn't want me to give up, but I knew it was important for her sake to give up and give her some quality of life before she left us, like, you know. Yeah. She never complained. She was never a person to complain about anything. I remember when I talked to her about business, and I had a plan in my mind, and she said, well, she said, I can't see it, but she said, go for it. You think you can do it? You never stood in my way for anything in business or whatever I wanted to do. She always said, yeah, well, you go for it, and I'm with you, you know, which was great.
It's amazing to have that support, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Can't really get through life without that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Tell me about your journey into the ministry. What drove that?
Well, I guess I grew up in a home that was a harsh environment, and really heartbreaking. My father was an alcoholic, and we had a lot of pain that I really, you know, was really hard to bring out. Long story short, my mom and dad broke up because of alcohol and so on and so forth, and abuse and what have you. And I always thought if I ever had a family, I want to do things a little differently than my father did. I remember one time my father asked me, he was the highest paid man in our community, chief engineer, drunk almost every evening, but never missed a day's work in his life that I know of. And when our mother left us, and my oldest sister quit school to look after us, it was a harsh environment, really hard environment. I remember one day he come home from work, and he asked me if the wood was in. I said, no, not yet. And he asked me if the water was in. Now, we logged water, and we logged wood. And he was the highest paid man in our community. But he was also a slave to the bottle, you know. He just couldn't shake it whatsoever. And he would beat me until I peed my clothes, you know. And one day he went to beat me, and he said, I'm going to give you marks to take to your grave. That was his words he'd say to me. And after I saw him panting for breath, I knew. I was 15 years old. I was hardy. I used to do a lot of chores. I grabbed him, and I put him up in the corner, and I said, Father, if you ever lay a hand on me again, so I'm going to make away with you. I was at wit's end. I couldn't take it no longer. And he never hit me from that day on. And he would get in my face, he would bawl, he would scream, but he would never hit me. And one day when I was living in Halifax, I got a call from my father. And long story short, my dad and mom got back together. She had a car accident, had her 2 legs broke, her 2 arms, all her ribs were broke, and she was in the hospital for 13 months. And never to walk again, that's what they told her. Anyway, they made up, got back together. Not without my father one day made a change in his life. And he called me one day and he said, "Barry, you should come home. Things are a lot different here now." And he was. He changed. His life changed completely. And when I started a family, I thought, you know, I want to be like that. Lots of times I used to go out and on a weekend and get drinking a little too much. And one day I realized, you know, I'd becoming the monster my father was. And I don't need this, you know. And I made a change in my life. I got converted. And then I felt to go into ministry. So I did. I done all my courses to correspondence for ministerial courses. And then I applied for credentials and went in ministry. And we had a wonderful, wonderful time in ministry and so on and so forth. And I just felt that one day this was the time to move on and say, okay, now we're going to do something that I promised you a long time ago. We're going to buy a senior's home or build a senior's home. And even before I went to ministry, I had land purchased in Funigate, and I was going to build our first home. And I sold that while I was in the ministry, as a matter of fact. So that was a little tent before we went, you know. So, and I got to say, our first home, Hope Hurlican, the community and Hope Hurlican and Beatty Bird and the surrounding communities, they really, really rallied with us and supported us. And it was amazing, amazing journey. And we just kept going from community to community like that, you know. And it was great, yeah.
Barry, you touched on how important seniors are and how special seniors are. Tell me about that.
Well, we know what kind of a day and age we're living in. And it's hard to find people that are loyal and committed. And it seems like our seniors got something that's priceless, you know, and they're very knowledgeable. You know, they've been around the block. They know, and it's just a joy to be around those seniors and to listen to their stories and where they came from. You know, not everyone that came in our homes was raised with a silver platter. You know, some of them went through hard times, and I think it left a mark on them. You know, it left a testimony of life can be good. You know, you just gotta work at it and make it happen. You know, and like I said, you can depend on the seniors for their loyalty, and they're there. You know, and yeah, it's just I always says there's nothing better than seniors, you know, with their wisdom and knowledge, understanding.
You must have seen some pretty special people come through your doors.
Yeah, we did. We saw a lot, like I mentioned earlier. It's kind of hard when you have your clothes dropped off in a garbage bag and says, "Here's Mom," and not to come back, you know, and see them. And it's difficult, you know, but you know they're human beings and they're precious. Now I should say that in scenarios like this, in cases like this, there's a reason for it. And in Newfoundland, you know, work wasn't very plentiful, and times were hard, and if you had situations in the home where it wasn't too good, then usually it was put out on mom or put out on dad, you know, and it wasn't so good. So, or they weren't working and they kept mom and dad for a bit of pension, and, you know, and so the senior was suffering, and the family itself was suffering. But when they realize they come into a facility like this and think, oh my goodness, this is like vacation. This is like, you know, going away, you know, and a lot of them never experienced this sort of thing. This is what I say, like, you know, taking the home from an institution and making it more personal and home, you know, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, Barry, we've talked to a lot of people here at Lanes over the last couple of weeks, and they use words like love and family and welcoming and caring flow off their tongue. Mm-hmm. Everybody here uses a word so freely, but yet so powerful words. Mm-hmm. Does this stem from your wife's vision of how this should unfold?
I think so. I think so. Like I said, she was a very compassionate person, and no matter what you've been through, she'd help you look through it, you know, and get beyond it and move on, you know. It is home. It is definitely home, and love has to be the key, you know, for the seniors. They love you, and you love them, you know. And once you see quality of life that they're getting, and the care, and the food, you know, I always says that good grub is what the Newfoundlander says they want, and once they, you know, once you care for somebody, you love them, and you feed them well. Like I said, they're going to advertise for you. They're going to speak truth that how they're enjoying, you know, where they are, and it makes a difference. It really makes a difference.
Yeah, there's nothing transactional about this place. It's all family. Mm-hmm. It's all a community. It's a lifestyle. I've heard it described as like living on a cruise ship.
Yeah.
You know, and you're right to say it's like a vacation. Mm-hmm. For many people come in here, this may well be the highlight of their life.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's good to see that. You know, they deserve it. Like I said, they've contributed to our communities. They contribute to our finances in this province, the workmanship, and all that they've done down through the years. Now they deserve some good quality living. They're stress-free, with everything looked after. And I think this is what they're getting in our home. You know, that's what we strive to do, you know, to please and to help them in every which way in life.
And Newfoundland's a wonderful place, pretty special place, and they built it.
Yeah.
Those are the people those are the people that built this, right?
Exactly. This is what I'm saying. The seniors are the ones that really built this province, and now they deserve their reward, you know, while they're here, and have some comfort and care, you know.
Barry, with all of your business success, you're an incredibly grounded gentleman. What keeps you so grounded?
The homes itself, you mean?
Well, you as an individual, like the residents here bring your name up. Like they know you. They know you've been around.
Yeah.
You talk to them.
Yeah.
What is it about that you do that?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's just like I always say, if you give them the best, they'll treat you the best, you know, and they'll speak well of you. And we try hard, you know, and my boys try hard to minister to them and help them in every which way, you know. Yeah, they've given themselves completely over, you know, for these residents, and financially I think they've exhausted a lot of their time and money and energy and finances and so on and so forth. They didn't do it halfway. They, you know, when I started out, I couldn't do what they've done, you know. They've taken it to a whole different level. But we did the best we could, and we squeezed every cent that we had to put into it, and we give it the best, everything. It worked. We financed our house, everything we had to make this work for us, to get in there, and start it. We just kept doing it, kept building and moving forward. And each time it wasn't easy. It was just as hard as the first one. But we knew it was the right thing to do, Yeah.
Barry, you keep talking about the boys. What are their names, and tell me what they mean to you?
Well, Blair's the oldest, and Blair's, to me, his personality is the big teddy bear. He's got a big heart, and he's very talented, and he can, really get down to earth with people, and people love him. And Timothy is second son, and he's more of a numbers guy, figures and books and so on and so forth, and two different personalities, but really work well together, and they've done extremely well, I got to say, and I'm really proud of the boys, I call them.
Right.
And then we have another boy, Andrew, that owns Kingsway retirement homes all across Newfoundland as well. And he's got the same passion. He's the youngest. He's only 32 years old. And between the three of them, they have maybe up towards 1,000 beds in this province. And just very passionate about it. Again, Andrew is a sweetheart. Now, Andrew is a real brain numbers person, and he's humble, and he knows how to do business. Very sharp, and I think he's on his fourth or fifth brand new facility. He got one facility soon to open in Paradise, over 100 beds, 3 stories, and they groomed all this from their mother. They really, I can see every day that her compassion, her legacy is just flowing right through them, and they know what they want, and they're enjoying every minute of it.
Barry, did Sheila get to see any of these facilities in the iteration, the beautiful facilities that
She
are here?
never got to see it finished.
No.
She did see some of the pictures of the dining room and her name on it and that, but she was a very humble person. She was very, very humble. She didn't make nothing of it. She never said it was great or nothing like this, And she just always told her boys, you care for these residents. You give them the best care you can, and it'll come back to bless you. She didn't get a chance to see it. She saw the outside of the building. It wasn't finished inside. Matter of fact, we were going to take a room there ourselves, and until she passed, and then,
So you have 1,000 people now, 1,000 people that you care for, you help in their everyday life, and their families, their extended families.
Yes.
I mean, your reach is far.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea of how many families in the entirety of your journey that you would have been a part of?
No.
The number's big. It's a big number.
It's a big number, yeah. And of course the seniors are one thing, but then the families of the seniors are something else, because you're dealing with everybody. They want mom and dad looked after with the best, and so you're always communicating. It's a big family when you look at it,
A big family. It's the biggest one in Newfoundland, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, that's right.
I struggle with the 2 boys that I've got. I'm in awe of what you've done.
Yeah, they're good. They've done a great job, I must say, and I hope they keep the vision burning brightly. It's needed. This is needed in Newfoundland. We have a lot of people now, like Newfoundland have been blessed. We've prospered, a lot of work, and so on and so forth. That leaves mom and dad alone. And with facilities like this, they can leave and go to work and have comfort of mind that mom is not fumbling around in the nighttime and nobody looking after her, and with somebody giving them great care. And you know, sometimes we have one lady here, she fell down when she was living in her home, and her daughter was really upset. She wasn't eating, she was milk, and her daughter had her cupboards full with groceries, but you know, she wouldn't eat because of this and that and something else, and the bottom line is that she needed care. She needed someone, you know, and so the families understand that they can't be there every day, and you know, as much as they would. That's the culture of Newfoundland. We always looked after our forefathers, you know, and our mothers. But the time is coming that everybody is so busy and trying to survive and work and so on and so forth. So 9 times out of 10, mom is going to be left alone, or dad is going to be left alone, and they need care. And this is why those facilities are here, that they can come and the families can come in and look at their mom and say, "Oh, you look so good," and they're putting on weight, you know, and all this sort of thing. And it's great, you know, they when they're cared for and looked after, you know.
Barry, this is a remarkable, your story, your journey is a remarkable one for sure. Sheila sounds like an amazing woman, and what's passed down to the 3 boys is incredible, and you're making such an impact in this province, positive impact. That must make you sleep well at night.
Yeah, well, you do. I remember one time the guy that was an alcoholic, and I was telling you that she would tell him to go and get washed, and I'll give you a drink, you know. The ambulance took him out of his house. The ambulance driver told me that there was an old ham, a ham on the counter, with a bone-in ham, they call it. And it was there so long that he said the worms were coming out of it. And he was at wit's end. No family, nobody to look after him. The ambulance took him from the house, put him in the hospital, and that's where he came, to our home. And he was cleaned up, shaved every day. People in the community couldn't believe that this was the same man, you know. And, you know, that'll do something for you, you know. It brings great satisfaction to see a man's life change and to get some quality of life, rather than living for the bottle and hungry and everything else, and not being looked after, to a complete reverse. Now, he had no family to tell that to because he was alone. But when the community seen him, they realized that this is the best place for him, you know, and many more. All situations are not like that. Some of them are very, to the point where I mentioned earlier that, you know, there's nobody there to look after mom or dad because they're working. And there's no abuse, no nothing. And they too need the comfort, you know, that someone can look after them. And this, again, this is why these homes are in the province, and they're a great tool, you know, to help people.
Coming to you from the islands of Atlantic Canada, Gale Force Winds is a podcast anchored in optimism. Join us for a positive conversation every Tuesday on galeforcewins.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Co-owners and creators Jerry Carew and Alan Dale are seasoned communicators and business development experts. Together, they provide an elegant intersection of quality, speed, and affordable pricing in your media campaign. To learn more, visit galeforcewins.com.
Sometimes the word home has a connotation to it, right? People don't see it the same way, but home is the perfect way to describe it, because this is home to every person I've met here. This is their home.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that. You know, we hear it all the time, and it's great. It's great.
Barry, we've had a lot of people on our podcast who've had wonderful journeys just like yours, and we always ask them to leave the audience with a piece of advice. Mm-hmm. Now, you're a man who's seen a lot of things, done a lot of things, and helped a lot of people along the way. What would that piece of advice be?
And to seniors, you mean?
In general.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that if somebody's out there and they're struggling as to what we should do for mom or dad, and they know that they're struggling, I think you should be at peace that there's places in Newfoundland, not just our homes, but other homes, that are welcoming and can bring a good quality to their mom, to their dad, and they won't regret it. You know, they don't need to struggle, and they don't need their parents to struggle. I think they need to look at a place like this and to be at peace that this is what we need, you know, for our mom and dad.
Jerry, your thoughts?
Well, I'm quite moved. To be honest with you, Alan, we created Gale Force Winds for this very reason. And Barry, I think we could probably go on for a couple more hours, but we don't have that time tonight. Despite Alan makes the joke that we have the entire internet, but we want to respect your time, and we do need to talk to your sons later. I just want to say thank you for what you're doing for this province. You're an example to every single Newfoundlander and Labradorian that you can build something from scratch. And vision and passion and hard work, I believe, are how you did it. So thank you.
Thank you. And I have to say again that my wife was the hero in all this. And I'm just hoping and praying that her legacy will live on, and that it will be lived through my boys that have now taken the torch and are running with it, you know. So I want to thank you for taking the time to sit down with me.
I'm going to comment as you're speaking. This setting, everyone's not going to see it, but the sun is setting on this setting, and it's shining on your face, and I can imagine the well-lit rooms are lit quite brightly right now.
Well, another wonderful edition of Gale Force Winds, and I want to tell you, there's plenty of heroes in this beautiful story that we heard tonight, and there's no doubt Sheila's legacy will live on, not only in this place, but all across this great province of Newfoundland and Labrador. What a wonderful story. What an offering you're providing to the seniors of Newfoundland and Labrador. This is truly a beautiful place to thrive in your latter years. This is truly a home to come to, and this is very, very much a part of your family's legacy to Newfoundland and Labrador. And I, too, like to leave the podcast with my own piece of advice, and quite frankly, the world needs more Barry Lanes. So thanks very much, Barry.
Yeah, appreciate that.
35 years ago, I was off the coast of Australia on a Canadian destroyer. They took a picture, wrote a story, and sent it back to the Newfoundland Telegram, and boy, was my mom proud. That's called a hometowner. Jerry and I have replicated that for 2022. We've traveled to where the sailors of the Royal Canadian Navy are deployed, and we've got their stories in video and audio format to send back to their mom and dads so they can be just as proud as my mom was 35 years ago. Here's one now. And welcome to another edition of Gale Force Winds, the Force 8 Hometown Edition, right here on board HMCS Harry DeWolf, Canada's newest warship, and I gotta tell you, it is impressive. We're off the coast of the Turks and Caicos and the Caribbean Sea, and what a pleasure it is to be in conversation with Canadian sailors. And our next guest is a special one. Now, we've talked to the commanding officer, we've talked to the cooks, we've talked to the guys that are running the engines, but it's not often you get to talk to the ship's barber, because every ship needs a barber. Ryan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Master Sailor Ryan Smith, Marine Technician on board here at HMCS Harry DeWolf. I've been on board since the ship was delivered, and yeah, it's been great so far. We had a lot of great trips. I did the circumnavigation when we went around North America, and here I am on Up Carib.
Ryan, where are you from?
I'm from Conception Bay, South Newfoundland.
Conception Bay, South Newfoundland.
So, Ryan, the navigation of the north's not much different than, I guess, what your experience growing up, eh?
Yeah, that's right.
And I can say that coming from St. John's.
Yeah, so yeah, it was great going up north. It's something like you don't really expect. You know, a lot of Canadians don't know what it's like up there. It's just being somewhere so remote, and you know, everything from the northern lights to polar bears to glaciers. It was an amazing trip up there.
Ryan, tell me what it was like growing up in Conception Bay for you. What were your big motivators and influencers in life?
Well, my grandfather was a fisherman. I grew up on the ocean. I spent my whole life basically out on the ocean, right?
What part of Conception Bay specifically did you grow up in?
Long Pond area.
Okay.
Long Pond area. Yeah, it's just you know, our house was right on the coast there, and we had our boats, and I'd spend my days out on the ocean.
So would you go out the yacht club?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we'd get our boats go through the yacht club and out around the island. We got Kelly's Island, Bell Island, Little Bell Island. So I spent a lot of time out there, and I go back every year cod fishing out there. It's great.
Right?
Yeah.
So Ryan, what was the big motivator to join the Navy? Do you remember that moment?
Well, I think my big motivator was my cousin. He's a bosun, chief bosun out west, and growing up, he was in the Army. I spent a bit of time in the Army too, first when I joined, before the Navy, and he was a big influencer in that. And you know, just ever since I was young, I've been in some sort of organization, from CLB to Army Cadets. So ever since I was 5 years old, I've been in a uniform of some type. So it was, I guess, just, you know, that's just in my family. And, you know.
Yeah. So you riddled off a whole bunch of things that you do on board. Tell us a little bit about what exactly it is that you do.
So first job, I guess, is a marine technician. So I look after the propulsion plant. So I'm in the machinery control room, looking after monitoring all the engines, everything from the main engines to our freshwater drinking water systems, the HVAC. So I take care of all that. I'm also a flight deck engineer, so I take care of all the fuel systems and everything for when we land a helicopter here on the deck behind me. I'll fuel the helicopter and everything. So, and also the ship's barber, so I take care of everyone, from the CEO down to the ranks. I take everyone's haircuts.
So, you know, Al, I got this fine young man just gave me a tour of the engine room, and I'll intersperse that footage in for everyone. What I'd really love to do, though, is get a haircut. That'd be something kind of neat. We'd do that on Gale Force Winds as well. But man, you got some tasks on board this ship.
Yeah, I'm busy man for sure.
Yeah, good for you.
It's good. Keeps me busy, you know, and being at sea, you know, makes time go by a little faster too. So it's good.
I'm not going to lie to you, Jerry, about the haircut. You should probably just start with an estimate before we get right into the haircut, because you got a little bit of work to do there.
Yeah.
Ryan, I got to tell you, buddy, pretty proud of you, man.
Thank you.
You know, Conception Bay South, you're managing a lot of stuff on this ship. That's pretty incredible stuff. And it's clear you love your job. You're quite happy about everything
Absolutely,
you do.
yeah.
People seem to look right up to you whenever you walk around. I know that one of the people that we're working with there spoke incredibly highly of you getting you here. Listen, anything you'd like to say to the folks back home?
You know, I just like to say thank you to my family for all their continued support and everything. I know I make them proud every day, and you know, it's I can't wait to see them next time I get back.
Yeah.
Well, just, you know what? We want to bring greetings from Canadians, but in your case, we're also, two St. John's boys, are going to bring greetings from Newfoundland.
That's right.
Everyone in Newfoundland and Labrador is incredibly proud of you. Every Canadian is incredibly proud of you. Thanks for doing what you
Absolutely.
do, Ryan.
Thank you very much.
Well, another wonderful edition of Gale Force Winds, Force 8 Hometown Edition, right here on board HMCS Harry DeWolf. What a pleasure it was to be in conversation with Ryan here. This guy is a busy fella, man. He's got a lot of stuff going on board this ship, holding it all together and cutting here part-time to keep everybody looking tip-top. I got to tell you right now, the world needs more HMCS Harry DeWolf. Quite frankly, Canada needs more Ryan Smith. Well, here we are back with another edition of Gale Force Winds, the Force 8 Hometown Edition, in conversation with Paul Walter. Paul, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us where you're from.
So, I'm originally from Long Beach, Mississippi. I moved to Newfoundland when I was 11 years old. My dad's retired U.S. Navy, and my mom's from St. John's, Newfoundland.
Paul, do you remember growing up in Mississippi?
I do remember growing up in Mississippi. I remember hurricanes and tornadoes, and we lived 5 minutes from the Gulf of Mexico from our front door of our house.
What was the transition like coming from Mississippi into Newfoundland?
Seeing snow for the first time was probably the biggest eye-opener for me.
Yeah.
And having to buy a winter coat and sweaters and cold weather gear.
Paul, what did your dad do in the Navy?
My dad was a Seabee, so he's a construction battalion.
Right.
So he would go to the overseas bases in Rota, Spain and Okinawa and do the repairs on the bases, like fix runways, fix the buildings. He was in charge of the crews and did all the repairs on that.
So did he meet your mom when he was working at Argentia?
And back in the 70s, that him and Dad and some of his friends came in to St. John's on the weekend, and he met Mom one weekend, and then things just blossomed after that.
Well, you know what? That's a pretty normal story. They did a play about it a number of years ago. It was called Making Time with the Yanks. Have you ever heard of that play?
No, I haven't.
It's a great story, and it's not unlike your family's story. So tell me this now, you're on a brand new vessel. What's that feel like?
Absolutely wonderful. The quality of life of this vessel is so much better. There's only 86 crew members on board compared to about 230 or 240 on the CPS. It's a huge difference. Everybody's more close-knit, so it's very well.
Now, Paul, you weren't always a bosun, were you?
No, I cooked for 7 years when I first got in the military. I actually cooked before that. I went to school at College of North Atlantic on Prince Philip Parkway, cooked, and then I joined the Navy, cooked for 7 years, and I changed trades to a bosun.
That's fantastic. Tell me about the program at the College of North Atlantic. Did you enjoy that?
I absolutely loved it. I worked at the Delta St. John's downtown, New Gower Street. That's where I did all my on-the-job training.
Paul, do you miss cooking or do you prefer drug interdiction now?
I prefer the drug interdiction now. Cooking is more of a hobby at home more than anything else.
What a great background you got, Paul.
It's a far cry from the Delta Galley right now.
Oh, it's a big cry from the Delta Galley.
Paul, what a wonderful career you've had. You got family back home in Canada?
I have my mom and dad live in St. John's. I have my brother and his wife, my 2 nephews, they're all in St. John's.
Everybody's in St. John's. You want to give a big shout out to the folks back in Newfoundland?
I'd like to give a shout out to my mom and dad, Mary and George. Hi, Mom. And my brother Michael and his wife Karen and my nephews Henry and Grant. And also my wife Allison, who lives in Halifax with me. We've been married 7 years.
That's very good, Paul. You almost missed your wife there. That's good catch, brother.
Yeah, I did.
What another wonderful edition of Gale Force Winds. Force 8 Hometown Edition. We're right in the middle of the Caribbean Sea right now, about to board HMCS Harry de Wolf. What an adventure, buddy. I'm glad I'm on it with you.
Thank you.
It's got to be fun. It's got to be intriguing for me to be at it.
Every single time something happens, I say, there's no way this will take me out. This isn't the day.
My analogy to everybody is we need to work together here.
When you have a belief as an entrepreneur, you kind of stick to that belief because hope is everything.
Thank you for tuning in to Gale Force Winds. That's Gale Force Winds, WINS.com.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV.